Agadi have never failed to level very serious allegations against each other, and enshrined in the figure of Ajit Pawar, who unfortunately is no longer alive, will be all these conspiracy theories. And the truth of the matter is the electorate in some ways might even lap it up simply because of what you just mentioned, the early morning swearing-ins, the mystery over which side he's really
contesting separately in the municipal election.
Exactly.
The fact that it was being said that if Sharad Pawar is now going to retire from active politics, are the cousins finally going to come together? Else they fear being wiped out or being swallowed up whole by the BJP, which is on a forward march in Maharashtra. Let's bring in Radhika also on this because she tracks this politics very, very closely. Already the conspiracy theories have started, Radhika, hinting at a possible switching of sides by Ajit Pawar. Here, the Chief Minister of West Bengal and at least one Congress leader already saying that this shouldn't be treated just as an accident.
Shinde Sahab, aapka
kinds of conspiracy theories floating at this point. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Radhika, we can hear you.
Right, so all kinds of conspiracy theories certainly floating as far as Maharashtra is concerned. We've seen a lot of political leaders talking about some sort of, saying that this is not an accident, could be intentional. But again, this is too early to say such things. As Shiv had been pointing out, Maharashtra politics has been seeing a lot of twists and turns. It has been dramatic. It has seen a lot of hostile politics. And as far as Ajit Pawar is concerned, he's been at the center of it. He's the longest serving Deputy Chief Minister non-consecutively. Besides that, he's held several powerful portfolios, including finance, irrigation. And he is somebody who's always held on to power, be it when he was with the MVA or with Mahayuti. He was the one who was instrumental as far as NCP split is concerned. Yes, recently, him and his uncle, fought together in the polls as well in the local body elections in both Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad, which of course led to speculations that NCP could finally merge. Is it intentional? Not entirely certain. This is something expected in the Maharashtra political scheme of things. There is an advocate and an activist also who has, planning to petition. He just, sent a text to several of the reporters saying there is something beyond, what is being perceived at this point. So this must be investigated. But is there any truth to it remains to be seen. But at this point, of course, the entire state and the nation mourning. Family members of Ajit Pawar in Baramati, and very interestingly, many used to say that 2024 is going to be Sharad Pawar's last election, or rather, he is going to retire from active politics. In fact, he had tried retiring from it once, but then did not. He took back, he withdrew, NCP president's post as well. But unfortunately, as fate would have it, it was in fact Ajit Pawar's last election and last political journey. So yes, conspiracy theorists at it, but is there any truth to it? Not entirely certain. Investigation certainly on.
And we also spoke with the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, and we asked him this question on what really happened mid-air that led to the crash, that led to the death of Ajit Pawar. Also the Chief Minister of Maharashtra reacting to the untimely demise of Ajit Pawar. Let's listen in.
समूचे महाराष्ट्र में बहुत ही दुख का वातावरण तैयार हुआ है। हम सभी के लिए इस प्रकार के जननेता को खोना एक अपरिमित इस प्रकार की हानि है। व्यक्तिगत मेरे लिए वो एक बहुत ही दमदार और दिलदार इस प्रकार के मित्र थे, और हम दोनों ने साथ में काफी संघर्ष का काल भी देखा है, और अब दृढ़ता के साथ महाराष्ट्र के विकास में जब वो योगदान दे रहे थे और एक बहुत लंबी पारी वो खेलेंगे ऐसी परिस्थिति थी, ऐसे समय उनका निकल जाना, मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि इसके लिए हमारे पास कोई शब्द भी नहीं है।
All right, more reactions coming in.
Absolutely, and Ramdas Athavale, who in fact is an ally of the Mahayuti, he is a part of the Mahayuti, he is an ally with the NCP and the BJP and Eknath Shinde in Maharashtra. He is a Rajya Sabha member of parliament. He too has now asked for an investigation. Let's listen in.
महाराष्ट्र के डिप्टी चीफ मिनिस्टर जो अजीत पवार प्लेन हादसे में सर नहीं रहे सर, क्या कहेंगे?
हाँ, तो अजीत पवार जी प्लेन के क्रैश से मतलब अजीत पवार जी का डेथ हुआ है। अजीत पवार जाने से महाराष्ट्र का एक बहुत बड़ा नेता हमने खो दिया है। हमारे महायुति का, हमारा एनडीए का जो मेंबर थे और उन्होंने मतलब महाराष्ट्र के लिए बहुत अच्छा काम किया था और उनके जाने से हमारा भारी नुकसान हुआ है। हमें बहुत बड़ा धक्का बैठा है। बहुत ही बड़ा नेता हमने खो दिया है।
आपको लगता है जांच होनी चाहिए प्लेन हादसे को लेकर? जिससे
हाँ, मतलब इसके अभी वो तो महाराष्ट्र का गवर्नमेंट जो है ये मतलब इंक्वायरी करेगी और जिस तरह ऐसा हुआ है ये तो अच्छी बात नहीं है। इसकी जांच भी होनी चाहिए।
The difference here is that while you had Mamata Banerjee suggesting some kind of conspiracy, hinting at something might be amiss, here Ramdas Athavale is saying that, well, it's a plane crash and it needs to be investigated by the government, but the idea of foul play being suggested at by Mamata Banerjee, that something is amiss, that Ajit Pawar was going to leave the Mahayuti. Nitin Raut of the Congress also making such a suggestion. We'll play that out in just a second as well. But interesting times. Of course, it is much, much too soon to be engaging in, debates like this, but that is the nature of our politics. The fact is that for a long time, this has been the one allegation against the BJP, that your allies cannot trust you, that you will first go for your allies again and again. In fact, recently, Shiv, when you had the AIADMK tying up with the BJP in Tamil Nadu, the example of Maharashtra was given. Absolutely. That look what they did to Uddhav Thackeray, that he was promised the chief minister's post, which was, by the way, denied, that he was promised the chief minister's post and then his party was broken and finished off, that the same thing was done to the NCP, where a family was split down the middle, and now the suggestion being made that the realization of what the BJP can do had dawned on the family, on the Pawar family, and they had reunited for one election. Maybe they were planning to leave the Mahayuti.
It's too early even to come out with these statements. Right now, I think
that they already have.
Yeah, but
that's politics for you.
Absolutely, but at a time like this, when you have the family even moving to Baramati, you have tall leaders from the NCP, you have even the civil aviation minister going towards Baramati. These comments emerging at this time. We have Saurabh, and
it's safe to say that at this point the gloves are truly off.
Absolutely,
especially when it comes to TMC insinuations, personal attacks.
Let's be clear, guys.
Niceties have been thrown.
Indian politics needs no introduction in how to get your hands a little bit dirty. We are in an election season. The gloves are off, as Padmaja rightly
ahead of
said.
West Bengal elections.
Also, let's be very clear. Mamata Banerjee has issued the protocol niceties. Okay, a very, very heartfelt message has been issued by the Trinamool and by Mamata. But let's not forget that not only is politics cutthroat, but the very legacy of Ajit Pawar, the very details of his twists and turns in politics over the last few years has made such, made this very fertile ground for the kind of comments that we're hearing from people like Mamata Banerjee. So, while these may be conspiracy theories, and I agree with you, one shouldn't jump the gun on that aspect. It's very understandable that our politicians are leaping to take hold of this thread right now, because it gives opposition leaders a chance to say, this is what we've been saying about the BJP all along. Look how, to what extremes they can go if you don't toe the line or stay within the fold. I think that's what the insinuation here is. And it's barely, I know we're calling it an insinuation, but, it couldn't be clearer than this. If you're asking for a Supreme Court monitored probe, say that I've heard on social media that he's headed out of the Mahayuti, this is not disguised at all. This is basically saying, this is what the BJP does to people who don't fall in line, who don't sing their choruses, who don't stay within the ecosystem in the fold. You run the risk of being
bumped. But to drag somebody's death in an accident into it, well, we leave that to your wisdom. Meanwhile, news is coming in from Maharashtra, where in Mumbai, Mantralaya, the flag is now flying at half-mast because 3 days of official mourning has already been announced by the state government. All the state functions have been cancelled already, and the flag at Mantralaya now flying at half-mast. Okay, these are the live images that we are getting from Varsha, the Chief Minister's bungalow, and the convoy of the Chief Minister now leaving for Baramati. Perhaps in the evening today, the last rites of Ajit Pawar will be conducted. Let's cut back to Abhishek, and I believe the Chief Minister and the DCM, Eknath Shinde, will both be flying together, Abhishek, to Baramati. Abhishek, if you can hear me, I believe the Chief Minister is already on his way to Baramati now.
Definitely, after speaking to media at that time, also he had made it very much clear. Also, he has posted on X, and importantly, the entire Maharashtra administration, the Chief Minister office has said that Chief Minister, along with the Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, are en route to Baramati. In fact, 3 days mourning will be done across the state of Maharashtra. Has been informed, and definitely how the final rites will take place. The entire administration in Baramati and in Eknath Shinde, along with the Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, are going there. In fact, various leaders from other political parties. In fact, Harshvardhan Sakpal, the Congress president of Maharashtra, has also cancelled all his programs and are en route to Baramati. Several other tall leaders and in fact members and leaders, public representatives of the NCP party itself, they all are going towards Baramati itself. Definitely, whoever will be possible to reach Baramati, they will definitely move over there and pay their last respect to the tall leader from Baramati. And this is something very much unfortunate, unacceptable, this incident that has taken place today. Definitely many angles there are of investigation, as we were discussing, right from the technical glitch, weather failure, or a conspiracy theory that is being alleged by several leaders. So how it happens is something that we will have to keep the track about it. But a big loss to the entire Maharashtra, and a visionary leader, a tall leader that the Maharashtra has lost today. Back to you.
All right, we're also getting news that there have been family members of the crew that have spoken to NDTV. Let's just listen in.
आपको इसके बारे में जानकारी कैसे मिली?
ऐसा था कि सुबह में समाधान सरवनकर जी का फ़ोन आया और मैं इनसे बात कर ही रहा था कि कट गया, तो मुझे डाउट हुआ कि क्यों फ़ोन किए। इतने में मैं चैनल चालू किया तो मैं टीवी से मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि अजीत दादा का ऐसा हो गया। फिर बाकी लोगों का फ़ोन आना चालू हो गया कि अरे पिंकी माली आपकी लड़की का अटेंडेंट थी, ऐसा ऐसा। कल मेरा उससे बातचीत हुआ था कि पापा मैं बारामती अजीत दादा के साथ जा रही हूँ। तो बोला अभी आप तो 3 टाइम गई थी ना? तो बोले कि हाँ पापा, बॉम्बे टू बारामती, बारामती टू वाया नांदेड़ कर ही रही हूँ। वो आई, फिर आज सुबह चली गई। वो उसका कल का लास्ट फोन था, ये मुझे पता नहीं।
ऐसे मन बहुत घबरा रहा था। मैं सोच रही थी कि क्या कुछ तो हुआ है, पर ये लोग मुझे बता नहीं रहे थे, लेकिन मुझे अंदर से लग रहा था। और रोज मुझे सुबह सुबह फोन करती थी, रोज बोलती थी मम्मी नाश्ता कर ले, दवाई खा ले। रोज मुझे फोन करती थी, रोज बोलती थी, पर आज उसका कुछ मैसेज का रिप्लाई नहीं आया, कुछ नहीं आया। मेरा मन अंदर से बहुत घबरा रहा था। वो बात की, उसके पापा बोले कि, फिर मैं बोली क्या बात की पिंकी? तो बोले कुछ नहीं, ऐसे ही बस कल जाने वाली है फ्लाइट में, बस इतना ही बात हुआ और कुछ बात नहीं हुआ।
बड़े बड़े नेताओं के साथ वो उनके फ्लाइट अटेंडेंट थे, अजीत पवार भी उसी फ्लाइट में?
हाँ, अजीत पवार के साथ, फर्नांडीज के साथ, नारायण रानी के साथ, उनके बेटे लोग के साथ, चिरंजीवी हीरो है उसके साथ, उसके पूरे फैमिली के साथ ऐसे फ्लाइट अटेंड करती थी वो। सब बड़े बड़े लोग के साथ में अटेंड करती थी।
अब तक पता नहीं चला टेक्निकल ग्लिच है किस कारण हुआ, तो आप चाहेंगे कि इसकी जांच हो?
हाँ, चाहूंगी कि इसकी जांच हो। मैं चाहूंगी कि इसकी जांच हो, किस कारण से हुआ। मेरी बेटी तो चली गई, अब तो नहीं आएगी।
right, that was Pinky's parents. This is CCTV footage, Shiv, that I believe that is coming in right now that we're getting to our viewers.
It's 8:45, so it's actually just minutes before the crash actually took place. 8:45 is when, all right, so
Oh, there it is.
So
Huge
8:46 confirmed now, Shiv,
Yeah.
that you had the exact moment of impact. 8:46, the CCTV close to that airstrip in Baramati. And this is the exact moment of impact where you see in just a while, behind that shed, looks like some kind of a roadside eatery, you will see a ball of flame go up. And that is the moment when the private plane crashed, carrying Ajit Pawar and
Exact
4 other people on
8:46.
board.
So, from this angle, from this direction that the CCTV has captured this image, it suggests that it's pretty much in the distance because you can't see the aircraft
Yes.
going down. So it's obviously slightly over the horizon. Remember, the horizon line disappears after about a kilometer and a half. That's how little vision we actually have when we're looking in a straight line. And here, that ball of flame appears to be just beyond the horizon line, where that huge plume and that fireball erupts into that plume of smoke. The aircraft is not visible, so it is possible that the aircraft was attempting to land. That is something we already know. So it must have had some kind of a controlled descent. Didn't simply dive out of the sky as some people might be thinking in their minds when they look at a fireball of this kind. But remember that when an aircraft is approaching the ground, and again, I want to issue that disclaimer that we don't know yet all the circumstances or the criteria under which this aircraft went down. But it seems that the aircraft was, descending in a controlled manner, may have misjudged altitude. Poor visibility is what the pilot had reported, even though, Padmaja and Vedika, I want to point out that in these images, visibility doesn't appear to be an immediate problem. But again, I don't want to jump the gun on that because visibility means different things at different altitudes. In just a few hundred feet of altitude, visibility can change very, very dramatically, especially in winter conditions. So this establishes, what was borne out by the earlier image we saw of the complete destruction and the debris field that we saw, that this was not a crash landing. This was not any kind of controlled landing. This was a catastrophic impact with the
And Shiv, we're being told that the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, a team is on its way from Delhi to Pune, and they will get to Baramati in a while to inspect and start the investigation of what happened here.
That's right. And images like these, and remember that if you've got CCTV pictures of this angle of the impact, it's quite reasonable to assume that there will be other images as well, including from the Baramati airfield itself, even though the possibility of that is a little less because, as I understand it, and as the data coming in from flight radar suggests, the impact point was a few kilometers away from the airfield. So remember, it may not have been able to capture it, but this seems to be a couple of kilometers from where it has impacted. All such visual evidence becomes extremely crucial to the investigation. They've got material evidence in terms of the mangled debris on the ground. The flight data recorder would have been recovered already. The tail portion of the plane that you saw, which was largely intact, that in fact is where the black box of the aircraft is stored. That becomes front and center to the investigation. But apart from all of that, this information, the visual information, becomes crucial. Take your, I take your memory back to Flight AI 171. CCTV video and mobile video had captured every aspect of that aircraft going down. And that's one of the reasons why, the preliminary investigation report was able to come out so quickly. In this particular case, I wonder whether this visual and maybe other visuals will help them, figure out what just happened. Just one slightly unsettling nugget that we've just picked up. The 2023 accident that this aircraft, faced in Mumbai, Padmaja and Vedika, a final accident report more than 2 years later is still not out. There's only a preliminary report. The DGCA did not come out with a final report, so we don't know yet what happened in that respect. I don't want to conjecture, but maybe that will be part of this investigation.
And this is an aircraft that is being used by the Deputy Chief Minister, no less. Very interesting and very important, these images that are on your screen right now. As we speak, there is a huge, huge crowd of supporters that has now reached Baramati. The preparations for the last rites of Ajit Pawar have already begun. Union Home Minister Amit Shah hasn't yet left for the final rites, but has released a statement condoling his death. Meanwhile, we also know more about the pilot who was in fact flying this aircraft. Captain Shambhavi Pathak had been associated with the company since 22. She studied aviation at the University of Mumbai, later underwent flight training at New Zealand International Commercial Pilot Academy between 2018 and 2019. Very young lives. 2 crew members, Pinky Mali and Captain Shambhavi Pathak, also losing their lives, and of course 2 very close aides of Ajit Pawar. Total of 5 people who were on board this ill-fated flight. But you were talking about visibility, and to a layperson, Shiv, and why we want to keep talking about these images. When you think of low visibility, you think of usually what we experience here in Delhi in the winter months, where there is, it's fogged out, you can not see beyond your nose. But this looks relatively clear. Even through the CCTV camera, you can look far beyond the eatery. You can see what's happening in the distance. So all of this is going to be very, very important when it comes to the actual investigation, the whole angle of low visibility and the runway not being visible, like you were mentioning earlier.
That's right. And, it bears repeating that, low visibility means literally the difference between life and death when it comes to aviation, especially during the crucial approach phase, the final approach phase of an aircraft. Visibility plays a huge factor because remember, when an aircraft is descending, you're losing altitude very rapidly. And if you've got low visibility, the space you have for recovery, for emergency maneuvers becomes wafer thin. All of these will become very, very explicit and specific once the investigation gets the black box details. Now, 2 things are going to become very crucial. One, whether there's going to be more visual evidence apart from this. 2, and Padmaja, this is crucial, the communications. Remember, the pilots, Captain Shambhavi Pathak, young upcoming pilot, terribly sad for her family. She and her, the other pilot in the cockpit, would have been in radio communication with ground control. Whether in Pune or in, or the ground control staff at the Baramati airfield. What communications were taking place? Because remember, they attempted to land once, couldn't land. They looped back around to try and attempt again. 100% there would have been some communications because, aircraft are not autonomous. They don't fly by themselves. There is constant communication happening on the ground, especially during the landing phase. So those audio communications, which obviously would have been duly recorded as well, those will also be part of the investigation.
And Shiv, we were told that about 8:45 is when it went off the radar.
Yeah.
So that last 1 minute is highly critical to understand what went down, quite literally. And when you see that ball of fire, from here it's pretty obvious there could not be any survivors.
Yeah.
Given the massive ball of fire.
Yeah, and remember the aircraft going off the radar, like I said earlier today, there are only 2 circumstances in which an aircraft goes off the radar. One, if there is a very unlikely catastrophic systemic failure in the air where its transponder goes off and every other sensor malfunctions and there's a catastrophic electrical failure and the aircraft becomes suddenly invisible while still being steady in flight. The other is what we're seeing here.
All right.
It disappears from the radar because it has simply crashed.
Okay, Abhishek and Saurabh also joining us live now. And before that, I want to quickly bring our viewers up to speed. There is a very cryptic tweet that has also been put out by Raj Thackeray now, which says, in politics, one has to pay a price for straightforwardness and candor. I know that from experience. One can imagine how much Ajit Pawar must have had to pay for it. So it is cryptic. It is not directly insinuating anything. But again, you see the undercurrent there in the reactions that are coming in from people, from politicians in the opposition. The latest being Raj Thackeray, where he says in politics one has to pay a price for straightforwardness and candor. I know that from experience. One can imagine how much Ajit Pawar must have had to pay for it. Let's bring in fact, Saurabh and Abhishek, both of them are live with us now. Saurabh, staying with these images again, what we are playing out on NDTV, and now we have a fix on the exact moment that Ajit Pawar's plane crashed, 8:46 a.m.
Yes, and like Shiv was mentioning, important aspects of the investigation would be that second approach. It did try and make that first attempt at landing unsuccessful, but did make a second approach. The Baramati airport is not a very, very, sort of It's not an airport that's equipped with all the modern equipment that you see at, say, airports that have commercial flights or that have regular flight operations. The Baramati airport is private, mostly used for private aircraft, and also it did have a flying club associated with it, a flying training setup associated with it. It has very basic equipment, but it's also, an airport that's often used by the Pawar family because they keep traveling in and out of Baramati. Beyond that, I can tell you, yes, there are, of course, now there are preparations on for Ajit Pawar's last rites. In fact, I've been traveling on the Mumbai-Pune Expressway, and a lot of these VIP convoys have been passing by. All of them mostly probably headed to Baramati. Leaders of different parties, in fact, headed to Baramati, and this will perhaps be, what we will see through the day as those plans are made. Remember, he's a sitting deputy chief minister, 7th-term MLA. Someone who's in the position at this point. So there's a lot of protocol associated with the last rites, etc. But all of that again will be discussed with the family. We know the family members are also en route to Baramati. So obviously this will take place in a while, and those plans will be made known before actually it takes place.
Abhishek also joining us live at this point. Abhishek, trying to understand from you any news trickling in on the last rites.
See, definitely, as of now, what we are understanding from the sources out there will be a press briefing as to what happened over there, how they had identified the body, that it is Ajit Pawar himself. What we understand that, it was through our sources over there, that it was through the watch that he wore, because, completely burned bodies were, recovered from that site and were taken to the hospital. So it was very difficult at the primary stage to identify who all were present, and at the same time who is Ajit Pawar amongst them is what we are coming to know from our sources. And now after identifying the watch that Ajit Pawar wore, it was it was determined, or you can say confirmed, that he is no more with us. And all what had happened at that given point of time, how the bodies were brought to the hospital, is what we are understanding, that there would be a press briefing at the hospital, and also the administration currently is preparing where to do the final cremation, right? So as of now, time is not yet been decided, and who all are, because as we understand, Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and many important leaders from across the country will be visiting Baramati to pay their last respect to the tall leader. So that's the reason, every planning is currently underway, and a roadmap or whatever it's been decided, how the whether there will be a final rites ceremony that will take place throughout the road or something. All that is being now underway, is being planned currently by the Baramati administration. So we will have to wait for exact details to come out, but what we expect is soon a press briefing, at least from the Baramati administration, to give us more clarity as to what happened, how it happened, and who all were present, and how the body of Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar was identified. Back to you.
Imagine, Padmaja and Shiv, it took a wristwatch to identify the mortal remains of the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar. The impact so severe.
Absolutely. It's a colossal tragedy. It's a massive accident. And I think anyone who can see these pictures, this video, this last CCTV video of the moment when that accident took place, or the moment of impact at exactly 8:46 a.m., you can gauge from this just how enormous this accident was. Eyewitness accounts, now this CCTV footage, all of this points in one direction, that the impact was huge. Eyewitnesses talking about how the aircraft broke up into pieces. This was followed by a series of 4 to 5 explosions and a massive fire. And you can see that fireball that this aircraft was turned into on your screens as well. You've got fresh, in fact, you've got a statement now coming in from the Shiv Sena, Uddhav Thackeray, saying we've lost a strong leader and a fine colleague. He was extremely disciplined, had a firm grip on his department, a deep understanding of the finance sector. A special bond developed between us. His passing has created a void in the state's leadership. He was truly a Dada in every sense. My heartfelt tribute to Dada on behalf of myself, the Thackeray family and the Shiv Sena family. But another interesting reaction coming from another leader, Shivan Vedika, of Uddhav Thackeray's party, where Member of Parliament Arvind Sawant is the latest to join the chorus for an investigation, where he has said, we are saddened, he was our Dada, he was a daredevil, but we need an investigation, a serious investigation, to get to the truth behind what has happened to Ajit Pawar. So already from various quarters, and beginning with Mamata Banerjee, I think she has been the clearest in what she has insinuated, where she is saying that the opposition leaders are also not safe in this country anymore, along with the general public. And then you have got members from the Shiv Sena, members from the Congress. Vasudha, NDTV's political editor, also joining our broadcast now, and we will most likely see plenty of this politics in the days to come. The fact that you had Ajit Pawar with a checkered political history, and now those who were at one time with him raising questions. Vasudha.
That's right, Padmaja. In fact, I was just looking at the visuals today morning. You know, everybody who was hurt, upset, angry at the death of Ajit Pawar went to 6 Janpat, you know, which is the house of Sharad Pawar. They went to, not Sunetra Pawar, his wife, but of course, Supriya Sule. In fact, Sunetra Pawar went to the same house. You know, so there is a sense that the old man becomes powerful again. And this has been a tragic death. It's a tragedy that people of Maharashtra and people of India are witnessing. We've seen, we have seen India lose several politicians in the past, from Madhav Rao Scindia to Balayogi to YSR, the most famous one, and that caused quite a political earthquake in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And only recently we also saw Vijay Rupani losing his life in an air crash. But this is going to be very different, because this is going to change the political dynamics of Maharashtra completely. Because remember what happened in Pimpri Chinchwad and Pune, we did have a feeling that this merger is going to take place. But yes, it's a cremation that's going to, have a reverse sort of a generational shift. Is that going to be happening soon, or is it going to be Parth Pawar and Rohit Pawar who are going to take this forward? All that too soon to say, but as of now, it looks like, there's a political earthquake in Maharashtra that's likely to happen, specifically with regard to the future of NCP, which is seen as a very dominant force, specifically in Western Maharashtra.
Vasudha, also for the benefit of our viewers at this point, I think it's important they understand from you the relationship shared between Sharad Pawar and Ajit Pawar, away from the politics of it all.
Well, I think, he was very close to his uncle, but he was very different from Sharad Pawar. I remember asking him this question that, you have the minority voting for you. You're the only party in Mahayuti that gets Muslim votes. Doesn't it make sense for you to be in the opposition? And after some days, during assembly elections, when he met me, he asked me this question that, now you get the answer to that, because he wanted to tell me that the NDA is a force on the rise, and he wanted to be sure that he is on the winner side. He was ambitious, he was also rooted, he was not pretentious, he was not a strategist, he was an organization man, somebody who valued discipline. But at the same time, while many might think that he didn't have an ideology, he was very clear that, he was very clear about his secular credentials. At the same time, he loved his sugar mills and corporations, and he never forgot that he rose from the cooperative politics, and that is something that he held very close to his heart. He was abrasive, according to a lot of people, and we've covered him, in Sangli and Baramati and all. It was always a joy covering him and, picking up those Marathi words that he used. And he was very unpretentious in a lot of ways and rooted, and his wife was exactly the opposite, someone very docile, someone who could just talk about Baramati in a lot of ways, who should just talk about her family. And also she got into politics, she became a Rajya Sabha member. And one thing is that Vedika, he was also not resistant to apologizing, because I remember when he made his wife fight against his sister, his cousin Supriya Sule in 2024 Lok Sabha elections. After that, he apologized, saying that that was a mistake on his part. So family did come first to him, and it's just 2 months ago that his son got married, Jai Pawar, and I still remember looking at those pictures of his wedding in Bahrain. So clearly a tragedy for the family. The family is on its way to Baramati, and we'll have to see
anyone
how
who
it works
thought that
out.
this was a family at war. They went up against each other. Sunetra Pawar taking on Supriya Sule in Baramati. For Ajit Pawar to campaign against his cousin, he really gave it his all. Like, Baramati was almost like a prestige fight. Even though Sunetra Pawar eventually lost, you had the whole family come together for every function. And most recently, you had a function in Baramati where the entire family was present and they spoke so warmly of each other. So politically, Vasudha, they might be daggers drawn, but this was a family that made no bones that they were sticking together. Family came first. We'll come back to Vasudha in just a second, because while Ajit Pawar, a huge, huge political loss, there were 4 other people on board that flight with him as well. A young lady pilot, a crew member. We, in fact, spoke earlier to the family of Pinky Mali, both of these flight crew, extremely young with a promising career ahead of them. And naturally, for their families, the loss is earth-shattering. Listen in.
आपको इसके बारे में जानकारी कैसे मिली?
ऐसा था कि सुबह में समाधान सरवनकर जी का फ़ोन आया और मैं इनसे बात कर ही रहा था कि कट गया, तो मुझे डाउट हुआ कि क्यों फ़ोन किए। इतने में मैं चैनल चालू किया तो मैं टीवी से मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि अजीत दादा का ऐसा हो गया। फिर बाकी लोगों का फ़ोन आना चालू हो गया कि अरे पिंकी माली आपकी लड़की का अटेंडेंट थी, ऐसा ऐसा हो गया। कल मेरा उससे बातचीत हुआ था कि पापा मैं बारामती अजीत दादा के साथ जा रही हूँ। तो मतलब अभी आप तो 3 टाइम गई थी ना, तो बोले कि हाँ पापा बॉम्बे टू बारामती, बारामती टू वाया नांदेड़ कर ही रही हूँ। वो आई, फिर आज सुबह चली गई। वो उसका कल का लास्ट फोन था, ये मुझे पता नहीं।
ऐसे मन बहुत घबरा रहा था। मैं सोच रही थी कि क्या कुछ तो हुआ है, पर ये लोग मुझे बता नहीं रहे थे, लेकिन मुझे अंदर से लग रहा था। और रोज मुझे सुबह सुबह फोन करती थी, रोज बोलती थी मम्मी नाश्ता कर ले, दवाई खा ले। रोज मुझे फोन करती थी, रोज बोलती थी, पर आज उसका कुछ मैसेज का रिप्लाई नहीं आया, कुछ नहीं आया। मेरा मन अंदर से बहुत घबरा रहा था। वो बात की, उसके पापा बोले कि, फिर मैं बोली क्या बात की पिंकी, तो बोले कुछ नहीं, ऐसे ही बस कल जाने वाली है फ्लाइट में, बस इतना ही बात हुआ और कुछ बात नहीं हुआ।
बड़े बड़े नेताओं के साथ वो उनके फ्लाइट अटेंडेंट थे। अजीत पवार भी उसी फ्लाइट में?
हाँ, अजीत पवार के साथ, फर्नांडोइस के साथ, नारायण रानी के साथ, उनके बेटे लोग के साथ, चिरंजीवी हीरो है उसके साथ, उसके पूरे फैमिली के साथ ऐसे फ्लाइट अटेंड करती थी वो। सब बड़े बड़े लोग के साथ में अटेंड करती थी।
अब तक पता नहीं चला टेक्निकल ग्लिच है किस कारण हुआ, तो आप चाहेंगे कि इसकी जांच हो?
हाँ, चाहूंगी कि इसकी जांच हो। मैं चाहूंगी कि इसकी जांच हो, किस कारण से हुआ। मेरी बेटी तो चली गई, अब तो नहीं आएगी।
5 families mourning the death of their loved ones after that tragic crash that took place at about 8:46 rather this morning. Going back to Vasudha for a moment before Shiv tells us more about that CCTV footage that we're playing to the right of the screen. Vasudha, it's Baramati's bitter irony as well. It's the town that made Ajit Pawar witnessing his death now.
Right, Baramati was the stronghold of the family Vedika, and like Padmaja was also pointing out that it was Ajit Pawar who became an MP from Baramati first, and then he vacated that seat for his uncle Sharad Pawar when he was inducted in the Union Cabinet. So this is a stronghold of the Parivar, but you know, Ajit Pawar is also the first Pawar to cross over to the NDA, the first Pawar to actually become officially part of the NDA alliance. Although Sharad Pawar has had relationships which have been warm, which have been described as warm. In fact, if you look at Rohit Pawar's posts on the Prime Minister also, he has been quite, warm about the Prime Minister as well. But Ajit Pawar was ambitious. He wanted to also, I think I would describe his journey as someone who wanted to establish an identity, was separate from his uncle. His uncle was, a standing figure, a tall figure in Maharashtra politics, somebody who brought forth not just the Maratha identity into the spotlight, but also someone who spoke about cooperatives and the fact that Western Maharashtra, like Sharad Pawar became the first minister who was not from Mumbai, and he was the youngest chief minister of Maharashtra. And Ajit Pawar's journey can also be described as someone who was trying very hard to establish an identity of his own. And I think think with 2024 Maharashtra Assembly elections, he did manage to create that identity for himself, because his party single-handedly won 41 out of the 59 seats that the NCP contested, and that reduced, Sharad Pawar's party to a bare minimum of just about, less than 10 seats, and that in some ways also showed that Ajit Pawar was on the rise.
All right, Shiv, you want to go through the CCTV footage now, because that's something we
I
started
do, because
the show with.
if you notice what we've done with the video now, a little bit becomes more apparent, because from where we are broadcasting from, I was unable to tell that we could actually see the aircraft descending. Yes. Look at that little red circle. It shows you the aircraft. We couldn't see it earlier, but obviously our producers have better eyesight, and they've spotted the aircraft descending there and then impacting the ground. So this is even closer. This CCTV visual is actually even closer than we earlier thought. We're able to see the aircraft. It's flying very low. It has a descending trajectory, which obviously confirms that this was in its landing phase, or at least attempting to land. No part of this visual suggests that there was a loss of control. There is something called controlled flight into terrain, or CFIT, which is a technical term that accident investigators use in aviation, which basically means an aircraft hitting the ground while the pilots are still in control of the aircraft. The aircraft is still being flown steadily by the pilots, but they lose sight of where the ground is. They are probably disoriented. They've lost, they've had a momentary loss of where the surface of the earth actually is at this point of time. This can happen because of loss of visibility. This can happen because of loss of navigational aids, some kind of technical failure, disorientation. A whole combination of things can happen. But like Padmaja pointed out earlier in this video, low visibility doesn't appear to be a criteria. I will preface that by saying we don't know what the pilots were facing. Okay, even at this distance, it is difficult to say what the pilots were facing. But what is clear is that the aircraft was in a landing phase, and it went down clearly too fast, nowhere near the runway. This was about 6 kilometers away from the Baramati airstrip itself, which means the pilots at some level simply weren't able to get the aircraft until the runway to make a safe landing, and that's why it crashed where it did.
And the very latest that we are getting about the family, Ajit Pawar's wife, Sunitra Pawar, and her sons. Their sons are on their way to Baramati. They have landed in Pune, and from there they will be flying in a chopper to Baramati. That's the very latest that we're getting. Let's get more updates from Vasudha on that. So the entire family now is going to be in Baramati in just a while from now. Vasudha. Okay, we'll try and get back to Vasudha in just a second, but let's also give our viewers a little bit of a background of the pilot, Captain Shambhavi Pathak. Quite a list of achievements there, Shiv, for Captain Pathak as well. Between 2018 and 19, she earned a commercial pilot license under the standards of both the New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority and the Directorate General of Civil Aviation in India. She pursued a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics, Aviation and Aerospace Science and Technology from University of Mumbai in 22, achieved a frozen ATPL, which is an airline transport pilot's license, and served as an assistant flight instructor at the Madhya Pradesh Flying Club, holding a flight instructor rating as well. So a list of qualifications here, the circumstances, what was it, a technical glitch, not happening, but someone who was young but extremely qualified also losing her life in this.
A young aviator with her entire career in front of her, someone who clearly loved flying. We've seen some of the pictures that have come up on social media, and all of them have pictures of Shambhavi smiling widely and posing in front of the aircraft that she used to practice and train, to be an aviator in. So, being a pilot is something that requires a great deal of passion. It's not just a profession, it's a great deal of passion. She was flying, chartered services, small aircraft. They've got their own complexities and difficulties. Who knows? She may have had ambitions to, get into general aviation and civil aviation later as well. But right now she was focusing on, small business jets. The Learjet 45XR that she was flying is a sophisticated business jet that is used quite widely in this country for VIP travel and VIP movements. We understand she's flown Ajit Pawar and other leaders many times in the past as well. But just terribly sad, because it bears reminding to our viewers that India happens to be one of the fastest growing civil aviation markets in the world, and This is a country that needs thousands of young Shambhavis, to feed our civil aviation needs. And right now, it is the tragedy of one family, and we really pay our respects and our
Just
condolences.
a few more of her
to the
qualifications
shattered
here.
families.
Yeah. A jet orientation training on an A320 from Jordan Airline Training and Simulation in Feb 2022, CA commercial pilot license from Civil Aviation Authority of New Zealand in 2019. And the reason why we're putting all of this out is because very quickly and very often there is finger pointing. If there are people, who are doing it in a political fashion, there are others who will quickly, get up and say, oh, this seems to be like a pilot error, because frankly, everyone is, now trying to look at these images. There's so much of information out there. But the fact is that right now we know very little other than what we see on our screens right now. Here is a young pilot who was extremely qualified, extremely passionate. She also has lost her life along with 4 other people. Ajit Pawar, of course, the big political casualty in this accident. And the latest that we are hearing is that his wife, Sunitra Pawar, and both his sons are en route to Baramati. So they're both on their way to Baramati.
Along with Praful Patel and Supriya Sule. So they've taken 3 choppers, is the latest, and they're on their way to Baramati. We also spoke with Eknath Shinde some time back. The Chief Minister also on his way, Eknath Shinde also on his way. Let's just listen to their reactions that came in some time back.
समूचे महाराष्ट्र में बहुत ही दुख का वातावरण तैयार हुआ है। हम सभी के लिए इस प्रकार के जननेता को खोना एक अपरिमित इस प्रकार की हानि है। व्यक्तिगत मेरे लिए वो एक बहुत ही दमदार और दिलदार इस प्रकार के मित्र थे और हम दोनों ने साथ में काफी संघर्ष का काल भी देखा है और अब दृढ़ता के साथ महाराष्ट्र के विकास में जब वो योगदान दे रहे थे और एक बहुत लंबी पारी वो खेलेंगे ऐसी परिस्थिति थी, ऐसे समय उनका निकल जाना मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि इसके लिए हमारे पास कोई शब्द भी नहीं है।
शिंदे साहब, आपका पहला जो रिएक्शन, हमने आपका बाइट अभी सुना है, आपका पहला रिएक्शन अजीत पवार के डेथ के ऊपर?
बहुत ही दुखद घटना है और महाराष्ट्र में लोकनेता गवाया है, हम एक सच्चा मित्र गवाया है। क्योंकि अजित पवार पिछले कई दशकों से इस महाराष्ट्र की राजनीति में सक्रिय में उन्होंने सहभाग लिया है। वो 6 बार डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर रह चुके हैं और मैंने भी उनके मंत्रिमंडल में काम किया। मैं जब मुख्यमंत्री था तो मेरे मंत्रिमंडल में भी उन्होंने एज ए डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर के रोल में काम किया। बहुत ही एक हर विभाग की, कृषि हो, सहकार हो, सभी विभाग की बहुत ही अच्छी जानकारी, अर्थव्यवस्था को अच्छी तरह जानकारी रखने वाले नेता आज हमने खो दिए हैं। ये महाराष्ट्र के लिए बहुत बड़ा नुकसान है। ये विश्वास रखने वाली बात नहीं है इतने अजीत पवार जी राजनीति से निकलेंगे, जीत होंगे। बहुत ही दुख की बात है। वो बहुत ही स्पष्ट वक्ता थे, बहुत ही रोक टोक बात करते थे, समय के पक्का थे और शब्द के भी पक्का थे और यहाँ पर लेकिन दिल से बहुत सच्चे थे
जी।
मैंने देवेंद्र जी ने और उन्होंने एज ए टीम बनकर काम किया। हमारे आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के मार्गदर्शन में इस राज्य को आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया, इस राज्य को डेवलप करने का काम किया। उसमें बहुत बड़ा योगदान अजीत पवार जी का था। ये महाराष्ट्र भूल नहीं सकता है।
शिंदे जी, आपने लास्ट कब बात की थी पवार जी के साथ?
अभी परसों ही जब यहाँ पर चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया उनका यहाँ पर मुंबई में एक फंक्शन था, उस वक्त हम साथ ही में थे, साथ में ही कार्यक्रम में थे कई चर्चा हुई हमारे साथ में, वो चीफ जस्टिस सर आने पहले, और बहुत ही वही हमें ने पर 2 दिन पहले हम मिले, लेकिन आज हमारे अजीत दादा नहीं रहे। अजीत दादा मुझसे राजनीति में काफी अनुभवी पहले से थे
जी,
मेरे बड़े भाई की तरह थे। हमने एक सच्चा मित्र और बड़ा भाई गवाया है। महाराष्ट्र ने बड़ा लोक नेता गवाया है। इसमें उनके परिवार का तो बहुत बड़ा नुकसान हुआ ही है, लेकिन राज्य का भी नुकसान हुआ है।
शिंदे साहब, क्या उनके परिवार के साथ बात हुई है, पवार परिवार के साथ?
पवार तो परिवार भी अभी दिल्ली से बारामती पहुंच रहा है। मैं और हमारे मुख्यमंत्री महोदय हम भी बारामती पहुंच रहे हैं।
जी शिंदे जी, अजीत पवार फॉर गवर्नमेंट्स के साथ उन्होंने काम किया एज डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर। ही इज बिन योर कैबिनेट कॉलीग। आपके साथ उन्होंने काम किया, उनके बारे में कुछ बताएंगे, उस वक्त के बारे में कुछ बताएंगे?
बहुत ही अनुभवी वो डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर के रूप में काम कर रहे थे। हमने जब जब कई निर्णय लिए तो उसकी अर्थव्यवस्था करना, उसका प्रावधान करना, इसमें बहुत ही योगदान उन्होंने दिया। तब जब हमने लाडली बहन शुरू करी, कभी कई योजनाएं शुरू की, तभी उसको जो अर्थव्यवस्था का जो प्रावधान है उन्होंने अच्छी तरह से संभाला। और जब सरकार को अर्थव्यवस्था के कुछ हमें उसमें बैलेंस भी रखना पड़ता था, तब भी वो कहते थे कि हमें ऐसा करना है, बैलेंस से काम करना है।
Let's bring you a ground report now from Baramati, from the exact spot where the crash took place.
महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री अजीत पवार का प्लेन आज सुबह क्रैश हो गया। जिस जगह प्लेन क्रैश हुआ उस जगह मैं हूँ, आप देख रहे हो, यही वो प्लेन है जहाँ गहरी खाड़ी में वो गिरा है। और अभी भी इसमें जो भी कुछ आग है वो बुझाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। गोजुबावी नाम का गांव है, इस गांव की ट्रैक के बाजू में ही लगभग काफी नीचे यह प्लेन गिरा हुआ नजर आ रहा है। इस प्लेन में अजीत पवार के साथ 5 लोग थे और इस सभी की इस हादसे में मौत हो चुकी है। आज अजीत पवार बारामती का दौरा कर रहे थे। बारामती के जिला परिषद के चुनाव अभी लगे हैं और इस चुनाव के लिए अजीत पवार आज प्रचार सभा लेने वाले थे, लोगों को संबोधन करने वाले थे। उससे पहले ही आज सुबह 8:50 पर ये हादसा हुआ। ये हादसा इतना भयानक था कि प्लेन के अंदर सभी लोग पूरी तरह से जल चुके थे। अजीत पवार जी के हाथ में जो घड़ी थी उससे उनकी पहचान की गई है। अभी भी हम देख रहे हैं जो टूटा हुआ प्लेन यहाँ गिरा है, उसका इंजन जो है वो पूरी साइड पे गिरा है। बाकी अलग कुछ पार्ट है वो इधर उधर गिरे हैं, बाकी कुछ कागजात है वो सब इधर उधर गिरे हैं। और अभी भी इसमें थोड़ी सी आग है, वो बुझाने की कोशिश अब यहाँ की जा रही है। देवा राखुंडे, NDTV इंडिया, बारामती।
Alright, so that's Deva Rakhunde who was live there. Rakhunde who was live from that accident site in Baramati, and there you saw the remains, completely charred remains. And now, it took a good 4 to 5 hours for finally that fire to be brought under control, for that embers to finally cool down, because for the initial times, all the reports that were coming in, eyewitnesses, they spoke of how the fire was so big that it was a fight to even bring the blaze under control. And
these pictures completely confirm that, Padmaja. The fire would have been big. The aerial shot that we had just before this confirms that the impact happened at such an angle that the debris was spread over a significant area. That's the area that's been completely cordoned off now. The tail was intact, but the rest of the aircraft was completely destroyed. I can tell you it's going to be a real challenge. And as we saw in Deva Rakhunde's live report from the crash site, the first reporter to reach the crash site from NDTV and bringing us that first visual from there, shows that it was just off a highway, nowhere close to the airstrip, as Vedika pointed out. According to Flight Radar, which is a definitive website that tracks aviation movements, it was about 5.5 to 6 kilometers short of the runway in one particular direction. So Many things have clearly gone catastrophically wrong with the aircraft. What we do know is that there was poor visibility. We don't know if there was anything else wrong. Was there a mechanical failure? Was there any kind of electrical failure? Was there disorientation? We don't know any of that. What we do know is so far that Sharad Pawar, the uncle of Ajit Pawar, the patriarch of the NCP family, has reached Baramati. This is, remember, the family's bastion. The relationship between Sharad Pawar and Ajit Pawar had been troubled for a while now. These are first pictures of Sharad Pawar landing in Baramati, and he will be with the family of his nephew Ajit Pawar as he takes things forward. Padmaja, you've just returned from Maharashtra. I want you to talk about these pictures because you've seen this up close.
One can't even imagine what it must be like for the party patriarch, like we'd been discussing earlier. This is a family that might have split politically, but the Parivar was as rock solid as it can get. And that is perhaps the reason why the Agadi was always kept guessing a little bit by Sharad Pawar. They called him the wily old fox of Maharashtra politics. Somebody who split from the Congress, on the issue of Sonia Gandhi's nationality, then became a part of that same government. And his nephew was seen as the inheritor of his legacy. Somebody who was rough and ready. When it came to Baramati, they said unki tuti bolti thi. In Baramati, Ajit Pawar, Dada was the final word. Yeah. And the succession, you speak to anyone in Maharashtra, they were quite clear that when it comes to the political legacy, managing the NCP, the nuts and bolts of the party were all within the control of Ajit Pawar. And Supriya Sule was the face of the party in Delhi. So, now she is a Lok Sabha member, but she was the more urbane, the more suave face of the party, who would represent it in parliament. She spoke during Operation Sindoor. But when it came to really mobilizing the cadre, it was Ajit Pawar who really would be the inheritor. So when he split, it was seen as a huge setback for Sharad Pawar. Then, in the last few months, when you had the results of the assembly election come in and you saw huge reverses for Sharad Pawar's party, they lost out the symbol, they lost out the ghadi to Ajit Pawar's faction. So they had a new election symbol of the tutari, didn't do as well as expected in the assembly election. And a lot of talk about how in the run-up to 2029, this family has decided that their political future is in staying together, not just as a parivar, but also as a political... But was it going to happen when you were reporting on the ground in Maharashtra, Padmaja? Did it seem like this was imminent? It's incredible to think now that, with Ajit Pawar gone, first of all, what happens to what we call the Ajit Pawar faction, which is the NCP with the clock symbol. But now with him gone, is that reunion, or you can't even call it a reunion anymore? Is it a kind of merger inevitable now? I mean, what do you think? I mean, what would happen? Because here you've got the senior most party leader. Remember, Sunitra Pawar, despite the fact that Ajit Pawar threw his might behind her, eventually lost from Baramati. His party did okay, but she lost in their bastion. Correct. So in Baramati, it was still Sharad Pawar, and Sharad Pawar went to campaign to ensure that Supriya Sule wins. So, all of this, now what happens to the NCP? But again, what happens to Sharad Pawar at this stage in life? And you remember that iconic picture when he was campaigning in the last election, it started raining, and Sharad Pawar continued with his bhashan, and there was this backlit picture of him, and everyone was like, here is an octogenarian, he's perhaps fighting the last election, or he's campaigning for the last election of his life. He is now going to be in the background, and hand over the reins of his party to his daughter and to his nephew. But now to suffer a loss like this, it's going to be massive. What happens to the NCP? What happens to the Mahayuti? Are there going to be a rejigging of, equations? Is the NCP, if there's a merger of sorts, going to be with the Mahayuti now in its entirety, including Sharad Pawar's faction and Ajit Pawar's faction? These are all important questions, but right now, of course, I think everyone is just beginning to even digest the implications of what has happened. But for this one gentleman, the enormity of this loss simply cannot be underscored.
I would hazard to say that the stakeholders and the parties involved will not have the luxury of time to, not to take a decision very quickly as to what happens to the NCP. Once the last rites of Ajit Pawar take place today or tomorrow, and once the 3-day state mourning is done, Padmaja and Vedika, the NCP will have to move fast, because these are parties that have cadres. These are parties that have Zilla Parishad elections to fight. There is work to be done. As tragic as the passing of Ajit Pawar is, these are political entities that are election machines in their own right, and they've got to have that impulse to move forward, and they undoubtedly will. But I agree with Padmaja when she says, digesting what has happened, and if you look at our ticker, we've got an element there that talks about the multiple voids that Ajit Pawar actually leaves behind. It gives you a sense of how difficult it's going to be to pick up the pieces. Death comes as the end. Death is the end. In many ways, Ajit Pawar was the successor, but there's a void ahead of him. Who next? Who after him? With the same kinds of capabilities, with the same kind of stature to stand up to someone as powerful and towering as his uncle and break away from the NCP.
Fairly young politically, only 66 years old.
66 years old.
That is very young in a political life. And I remember there was this speech where Devendra Fadnavis went, and these three men, they had a lot of ribbing, you had a lot of back and forth between them. I think a couple of months ago, you had Ajit Pawar when, the three of them, in fact, a year ago after the assembly results came out, you had Eknath Shinde, Devendra Fadnavis, Ajit Pawar, and reporters kept asking Eknath Shinde, "आप भी क्या deputy CM की oath लेंगे नहीं लेंगे?" And suddenly Ajit Pawar piped up and he said, "मुझे इनका नहीं पता, पर मैं तो कल सुबह जरूर ये oath ले रहा हूँ." And Eknath Shinde said, "इनको तो oath लेने का बहुत experience
भी है." Reactions coming in. We're going to cut across.
Able to land on the runway. Very experienced pilot, more than 16,000 hours of experience. Very seasoned. The co-pilot was also 15,000 hours. 1,500 hours. And the captain was very experienced, instructor, examiner material. He was with Sahara, he was with Jetlight, he was with Jet Airways, and he was very experienced on this type of airplane also.
But the distance was almost more than 6 kilometers from the runway. Do you think it's possible that he could not have seen it, or there could have been any technical scan?
I really don't know, because I was not there.
Because we are talking about the flight data report.
I'm only talking of the information that I have got from the eyewitnesses.
When was the last security check done on the aircraft?
The aircraft was very well maintained. There was absolutely no problem in the aircraft. There was no technical failure in the aircraft.
And as far as we know.
2023 के इंसिडेंट की रेफरेंस दी जा रही है कि 2023 में भी ऐसी हादसा हुई थी. उसमें भी आप लोगों ने शायद लो विजिबिलिटी की बात उठाई थी. अगर आप
उसमें मैम 2023 में जो हुआ था वो बॉम्बे एयरपोर्ट पे हुआ था, और उसमें भी बारिश हो रही थी, लो विजिबिलिटी थी, एंड द पायलट आफ्टर टचडाउन स्किडेड ऑफ द रनवे. So that was the incident.
अभी फिलहाल सर जो आप लोगों से डिटेल्स मांगी जा रही हैं उसके रिगार्डिंग क्या अपडेट है पूरा?
मैं कुछ मैम देखिए, AIB की इन्फॉर्मेशन मैं ना आपको दे सकता हूँ ना मुझे कुछ मालूम है. The DGCA is doing the work, so please give us some time to handle first the families who have lost their lives, handle the DGCA, and then we'll get back.
Sir, how many Learjet 45s do you have?
We have 7.
And will you ground them for now?
I don't know. Why should I ground them? They're all fit aircraft. Why should I ground them? Okay. That's not my decision.
Okay.
The Learjet worldwide is a very, very dependable aircraft. So why should we ground them? And please excuse me, more than this, I've listened to you.
For the family members who from where were
my deepest condolences. So Captain Sumit Kapoor was a very good friend of mine. Very good friend of mine. He was a brother to me. Yeah. His son is also a pilot with us. Captain Shambhavi was a daughter to me. She was a child to me. And both of them were extremely good human beings, extremely good pilots.
So where
unfortunate, they're from Delhi. They're from Delhi. It is very unfortunate this has happened. Please give us time to come out of this, irreparable shock.
Agreed, sir. Sir, एक last बात. एक पायलट
आप लोग जो पूछ रहे हैं वो इस समय मेरे को भी नहीं पता.
नहीं सर, 2023 में जो हुआ था,
इस समय आज 2023 की बात करने का समय है.
इस बार फ्लाइट एकदम परफेक्ट था,
बिल्कुल परफेक्ट था. और ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ. टेक्निकली द DGCA investigates. The DGCA can only speak. I cannot speak.
Certainly, sir.
I'm not the investigating authority.
एक बार बता दीजिए कि कितने फ्लाइट आज
कितने बजे हुआ, कितने बजे
एक्सपीरियंस?
मैम अंदाजन 8 और 8:30 और 9:15 के बीच में हुआ है.
आपके पास कॉल आया?
मेरे पास जब कॉल आया जब कि एयरक्राफ्ट इज क्रैश लैंडेड. तो उसके बाद there was no one to whom I could contact.
The owner of VSR aircraft, VK Singh, speaking with the media. There were 5 people on board, including Ajit Pawar, Sumit Kapoor, the pilot, yet Shambhavi Pathak, as he mentioned, Pinky Mali, Ajit Pawar, all of them on that jet.
Absolutely. So, Vidip Jadhav, Pinky Mali, who is the cabin crew, Captain Shambhavi Pathak, Captain Sumit Kapoor, and Ajit Pawar. Now we know for a fact that there were a total of 5 people on board. For all of our viewers who are just joining us, the big story of the day is the unfortunate passing away of Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Ajit Pawar, in a crash that took place early morning today at 8:46 a.m. in Baramati for the local body elections that were taking place. Ajit Pawar was on his way to campaign for those elections. He took off at 8:10 a.m. from Mumbai in a private aircraft along with 4 other people on board. And at 8:46 a.m., those images on your screen, that is the CCTV footage of the exact moment when that crash took place. And at a little after 8:46 a.m., you can see this huge ball of fire go up, and that is when his aircraft crashed in Baramati, 5 to 6 kilometers away from the airport. Now remember, this is an airport where civilian aircraft do not land. It is only used for private aircraft landing, and it's an extremely busy airport. Despite that, because Vedika, this is extremely politically sensitive. It is the pocket borough of the Pawar family. You had a number of flights that used to come in, and especially in election season, the last 2 years, beginning the end of 2024 to now, you have only seen election after election happening in Maharashtra. So a lot of activity taking place over there. As we speak, you have again a bevy of people who are on their way to Baramati. Vasudha Venugopal, NDTV's political editor, also joining us now. On this broadcast, we ran images, and let's try and bring those pictures up again on screen. We were talking about Sharad Pawar, Vasudha, who has just reached Baramati. The fact that 66-year-old Ajit Pawar was believed to be the natural inheritor of the legacy of Sharad Pawar, somebody who would take over the reins of the party in its entirety, not just his faction, but talks of how a rapprochement would take place, that the family would eventually come together, and Ajit Pawar would be the natural leader. Ajit Pawar in Maharashtra, Supriya Sule in Delhi. For Sharad Pawar in particular, what is the meaning of what happened today?
Well, you know, Padmaja, in the morning we did see visuals of everyone was associated with NCP going to Sharad Pawar's house. And remember, he was also in Mumbai. And of course, they went to Supriya Sule's residence, 6 Janpad, and they, you know, sorted out all the logistics of the entire thing. And it looks to me that this is a political earthquake in the state of Maharashtra, because NCP is a party that has worked very hard to have its bastion in Western Maharashtra. It's a party of sugar mills and cooperatives. But now the focus is back on the old man of the party, the youngest, the person who became the chief minister at a very young age, Sharad Pawar. The focus is back on him. And yes, he will drive the campaign of the party. He will drive the party. It's too early to talk about that. Yeah. But yes, we also would see people like Rohit Pawar and of course Supriya Sule also playing the role of the matriarch that she is really good at, maybe bringing in the generations together and possibly getting cousins together. Yes, this is a family that has always stuck together despite political differences, although Ajit Pawar was the first Pawar to actually leave the alliance officially and go join the NDA. But it's been quite a tragic tragedy that unfolded today, unraveled today with this air crash that happened. And Padmaja, I'm reminded of the times when all of us thought what's going to happen to Andhra Pradesh when YSR died, or what's going to happen to Congress or Madhya Pradesh when Madhav Rao Scindia died. Aircraft deaths of politicians have been something that this country has been witnessing. But yes, it's always set an earthquake in whichever state it happened.
And also Maharashtra in particular, you see the tall leaders who have passed away in an untimely fashion, whether it was Gopinath Munde, whether it was Pramod Mahajan, and now this, you know, of course, different parties. But for Ajit Pawar's passing, let's also tell our viewers what exactly happened. There were a total of 5 people on board, including the 2 pilots, Pawar security personnel, Pinky Mali, who was a cabin crew. All 5 of them died immediately. You know, now you have information coming in that such was the impact of the crash that eventually Ajit Pawar had to be identified. We'll get our colleagues, in fact, Radhika, Abhishek and Saurabh also for more on that. because everyone is now headed to Baramati. A while ago, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, along with Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, also left for Baramati. A 3-day mourning has been declared. The tricolour is flying at half-mast in Mantralay. The small aircraft took off from Mumbai at 8:10 a.m. and around 5 kilometers from the airport in Baramati, it crashed at 8:46 a.m. And we are now learning that it went around twice, Vasudha, and then eventually crashed. And a massive, look at the remnants of that. The remnants of the aircraft, you only have the tail with VR. That's the company that owns this aircraft. Only the tail now visible in one piece. Everything else burnt to an ember.
Absolutely. Padmaja, in the morning when we got this news, all of us were very, in some ways, very anxious to know if Ajit Pawar is safe or not. And then, of course, tragically it unfolded and we got to know that he has also passed away. And now all roads lead to Baramati for a lot of VIPs. I'm told that a lot of BJP leaders and also some from the government will be going to Baramati, is what we understand, because this is an important ally of the BJP. He's the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, a man who has held several portfolios, specifically finance, and he had a lot of political meetings lined up in Baramati. He was not going there for, personal work, and he's the person...
4 public meetings.
Yes, he had 4 public meetings, and this is immediately after his party did not perform that well, lost Baramati and lost PMC, of course, and Pimpri Chinchwad, and these are elections, the local body elections that he fought.
Despite the family coming together.
Absolutely.
And which is why the entire politics, and which is why you have this whole, insinuation now starting, saying they had sensed that something was amiss. This family was, had already united for the municipal elections, although the NCP was at pains to say that this does not in any way indicate what is going to happen later. All right, we've got more news coming in now, Vasudha. Moments before the crash, the plane contacted the air traffic control at Baramati at 8:18 a.m. The crew asked about the weather. It was told that winds are calm and the visibility is at 3,000 meters.
That's right. This was the plane's message to the air traffic controller at 8:18 a.m. is what we've been told. And the first approach, of course, said that the runway was not in sight and the go-around was executed. And the second approach was that runway initially was not visible. And this is just one of the last moments of communication. Padmaja, would that be right? And we have also told that the crew later reported runway in sight cleared to land runway. But like you said, we saw the plane circling several times before it made that tragic.
And it's just happening in a matter of seconds. Look at the timeline that we've put together for you here. 8:18 a.m. That's when the first contact was made by the plane with the air traffic control in Baramati. They asked for the weather and told that the winds were calm and the visibility at 3,000 meters. So initially it was said that it was foggy, it was low visibility, but now it seems that the visibility was at 3,000 meters. The first approach, the runway was not in sight and one go around was executed like we have been telling you since morning. And when the second approach, and that is when that 8:45 a.m. you see, and we've put that image on your screen right now, you see the plane coming in at around 8:45. When the second approach was made, the runway initially was not visible, but the crew later said that the runway is in sight. Runway 11 at 8:43 a.m. they were cleared to land. They were told at 8:43 a.m. The plane was told, you've been given clearance, you can land on runway 11. At 8:44 a.m., the ATC sees flames near the threshold, and at 8:46, that is the time you can see on the CCTV footage that big explosion happens. Abhishek is joining us live on this. Just help us decode all of this information now. The fact that the visibility was 3,000 meters, the fact that initially the runway wasn't visible and then they were given clearance to land on runway 11 at 8:43 a.m. How do we make sense of all of this information, Abhishek?
See, definitely, this is the information that has been received and the details of it are out right now, and definitely as we were discussing the same thing, the first approach was very much of landing was not clear, and the aircraft pilot were in touch with the air control system out there, and after getting the clearances for the second runway, and within that, imagine, it was 8:43 when they gave the clearance for the runway 11, and we have the CCTV footage where we can clearly see at 8:46 when the aircraft crashed. That 3 minutes what happened, because they couldn't get any response back from the pilot that after getting clearance of runway, what was the next moment, and they couldn't get the response, and that's where the crash took place, and it is clearly visible in the CCTV footage also. It was till 8:43, right from the start, 8:18 to 8:43, it was in the air control system. The discussions were still going on, but after 8:43, no response was there from the pilot, and within 3 minutes we see the crash happening. So this is what the latest update that we can share, and we have got from the air operating system over there, and how initially the first approach of landing did not got the clearance, and then after the second approach, when the clearance was given for runway 11, but when it was cleared for landing at the last signal at 8:43, after which there was no signal, no comments from the pilot. And
it's Padmaja, the whole thing seems to have been over. Saurabh also joins us now. Saurabh, the ATC communication by the aircraft was at 8:18 a.m. and 8:44 a.m. is when the ATC actually saw flames near the threshold. How would you explain this?
Baramati is is an airfield that's like the press release says, it's an uncontrolled airfield, which means that it does not have ATC staff manning the air control tower like in other commercial airports, like for example say a Pune or any other airport which has commercial flights landing. It has around a 1700-meter runway, and what is very clear is that the aircraft BTSSK made contact with Baramati at 8:18, and then of course they were given the next call was at 30 nautical miles inbound to Baramati, and then they were given advised to descend in visual meteorological conditions at the pilot's discretion, which means that this is a visual approach, that the runway has to be in sight. It's not a system aided approach where airplanes have very advanced systems that guide the plane onto the runway. This is a visual approach at Baramati, and that was what was sort of advised to the plane. And then what we had been told is that the crew inquired about winds, visibility, and they were informed that the winds were calm. Visibility was around 3,000 meters, which means about 3 kilometer visibility, which is very normal, which is decent visibility again, if you look at it in terms of flying parlance. And then they were asked to report runway in sight after a go around, the first go around. They initiated a go around in the first approach, which means that they could not sight the runway properly, and they decided not to land and decided to make a second approach to land. Now, after go around, the aircraft was asked about its position, and the crew reported on final approach. Now, when the crew say final approach, which means that they've lined up with the runway, the runway is usually in sight, and and that basically it's the the final moments before landing, and that of course is something that the crew were asked to report runway in sight. Runway is currently not in sight. We'll call when runway is in sight, is what they said. And after a few seconds, they reported that the runway is in sight. So this is the sequence. So which means this is all normal procedure. So far, things are going normally. The aircraft was then cleared to land on runway 11 at 8:43 IST. However, they did not give a read back of the landing clearance. Now, cleared to, when the ATC gives you an instruction to the pilot usually repeats that instruction. For example, if the ATC says cleared to land, then the pilot will repeat that instruction so that there is no miscommunication. Again, a very common, essential practice in aviation. And this is, of course, but they did not do this read back. So that is the first anomaly. And then, of course, next the ATC saw flames around the threshold of the runway at 8:44 IST. This is barely a minute later. And the emergency services then rushed the crash site. So till about, there is, of course, this go-around. Now, go-arounds happen fairly often in aviation. It is a practice that's often initiated because Sometimes you can't see the runway. Sometimes there's a runway incursion. Sometimes if the pilot feels that, the wind gust is too strong, whatever may be the reason, the pilots can choose to do a go around. In this case, they did. And this was their second approach. And on second approach, things seem to be going normally right until the last minute. But the first anomaly that's being noticed is that they did not read back, which means that when, like I explained, when an ATC says cleared to land, the pilot will always respond to ATC and repeat that exact
Saurabh, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but I also want to bring in Sanjay Lazar, aviation expert, who is joining us now. We have the first statement coming in from the DGCA. Sanjay Lazar, thank you very much for speaking to us. And it gives us now the first authoritative details of what happened. The aircraft initiated a go-around during its first approach to runway due to low visibility, reported at around 3,000 meters. On the second attempt, the crew confirmed the runway was in sight, but failed to provide a readback of the final landing clearance at 8:43 IST. Now, for lay people like us, we are looking at this information, we are seeing the images on air where relatively the sky seems to be clear. And I'm saying this only as a lay person. It doesn't seem to be particularly foggy. With this statement, help us make sense of this information.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Actually, this corresponds to what I heard. I actually live in Baramati district. It's been bright and sunny since morning. And really, I was on other channels saying it's so strange. I'm not too far away from the airport, maybe about 20 odd kilometers. So this was really unusual. But what we had heard from people at Baramati airport that the pilot did contact the ATC and said he did not have visibility. We also saw on flight radar that he'd done a go around. Okay. Now the press, PIB has reported that apparently the pilot said he could not sight the runway, and he made a go around, and then he came to do a second landing, and unfortunately there was no readback. So this.
Sorry, can you hear us? All right, we'll try and get back to Sanjay Lazar in just a bit, but very important points that he was making that, for a lay person, often it seems that the weather is clear, but there are all of these technicalities which somebody experiences on ground. And let me read out that statement now in its entirety while we try and reconnect it with Sanjay Lazar. Emergency services spotted flames near the threshold of runway 11 at 8:44 IST. Just 1 minute after the last clearance, the wreckage was found on the left side of the runway. Flight was commanded by a highly experienced pilot in command with over 15,000 flying hours and a valid medical certificate. The aircraft, manufactured in 2010, held an valid airworthiness review certificate till September 2026. This is the second major accident for Messrs VSR Ventures in recent years, following a September 2023 crash that we on NDTV first reported of another Learjet 45 at Mumbai airport. So now at least we have the first official statement of what happened moments before the crash. A go-around was initiated during its first approach to runway 11 due to low visibility. And on the second attempt, the crew confirmed the runway was in sight but failed to provide a readback. Sanjay Lazar, I believe, is back with us. Go on, sir.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, it said confirmed that they did see the runway. They did not provide a readback when the ATC connected with them, which also corresponds to a lot of eyewitnesses who say that they suddenly saw a ball of flame and before the aircraft hit the ground. So this is something, I do not want to speculate because it's a very sensitive matter. It involves the late Deputy CM. Also, that it's in the initial stages of the investigation. The DGCA people must have reached the site by now, as well as the AAIB. So once we get the black box, we'll be able to determine. But it's becoming
clear. Understand. I know it's too early to ask that, and I know that what the information that we have right now also negates a lot of these earlier reports that the pilot was not able to spot the runway. In such a case, what do you think really happened, considering that the weather was also fine? What are the likely scenarios? I'm not asking you to speculate here, but what do you think could be those possible, possibilities that could have happened here?
Well, I can only speculate. I cannot give you possibilities. I do believe it could have been a last-minute, glitch that could have happened. That other than that, we did hear reports of the aircraft veering, and this is from eyewitnesses, veering towards the right, away from the main runway and landing on the shoulder before the runway. So that's one possibility that I can think of. But why it happened and how it happened, it would be remiss of me to speculate. It's not appropriate at this point. And please excuse me, I will not, go deeper.
Can you
into
just
that.
help us understand what it means when the statement says the crew confirmed the runway was in sight but failed to provide a readback of the final landing clearance? What exactly does it mean in normal English?
Yeah, well, like I think your earlier guest also said, when a ATC gives instructions, the pilot gives a readback. He repeats the same instruction back to show that he has followed it, received it, and is going to, abide by it. In this case, that readback did not come. So it obviously means something may have happened prior to that or at that point. Therefore, they did not hear a readback. And that is what the AAIB will correlate from the data recorder, the black box, and see at what time the incident actually occurred, what happened, and why there was no readback.
So the investigation team is already at the spot. What would be their processes? What do you think that their way of working would be, and what would be their primary investigation focus?
And in any investigation, the first thing we noticed right from the get-go in the morning, the site has been compromised hugely. Of course, people tried to rescue the deceased passengers, assuming they were injured. So there's been a lot of activity on the site. But the investigators will first, of course, cordon off the site and secure a black box. Most important, isolate the bodies, which I saw some have already been done. Initial videos actually showed bare bodies of the dead, and that was really tragic to watch on some television channels. So that seems to be contained now. The police have taken control, and the investigators will start looking into that, pulling out vital pieces of evidence that they can use for the investigation. This also is to say that I do understand that from the press report, PIB report, the similar company had an incident at Mumbai airport a couple of years ago. This aircraft has had 5 instances in its history of accidents out of the 650 that are currently flying in the skies. So it's still a low percentage very low percentage of accidents, but it's concerning that if there was an accident to the similar type of aircraft in Mumbai by the same operator a couple of years ago, why the AAIB has not looked at and given a report by now. So that's something that we need to look at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lazar, for joining us. So Padmaja, those are excellent insights there. Of course, like Mr. Lazar points out, that this is also not the time for speculations, and we'll have to wait for the investigation team to actually tell us what could have happened.
Absolutely, and the quick update now is that the last rites, the cremation of Ajit Pawar is likely to take place tomorrow. Yeah. You already have the Chief Minister who is on his way to Baramati. Sharad Pawar has already reached Baramati, as has Sunetra Pawar with her children. So the entire family is there in Baramati.
She's on her way. She's on her way.
Okay, she's on her way. She is, she's landed in Pune, and now they'll be taking a chopper from Pune to Baramati to reach the place, and the final rites will be carried out tomorrow. State honours, of course, he'll be cremated with full state honours. A 3-day mourning has already been declared. All state functions have been cancelled, and the tricolour is flying at half-mast. Let's go across now to Saurabh, who is joining us now. Remember, it is 5 people who perished in that crash that took place early today morning. Let's also remember the 2 pilots, the pilot and the co-pilot, both of them passed away, along with one aide of Ajit Pawar, as well as one cabin crew. You've got a huge number of people already, Saurabh, of the NCP who are gathered outside the family's residence in Baramati. And the kind of images that we saw today morning of leaders of the party, Rohit Pawar, Hasan Mushrif, Anil Deshmukh, people who have worked very, very closely with Ajit Pawar, breaking down on camera. All of 66 years old, taken far too early, and like we broke to you earlier, the same aircraft had crashed in 2023, and yet in 2026, Vasudha, the final report, the final accident report hasn't come out. It's been 3 years and no report in that crash that took place in a similar aircraft 3 years ago. So 2023, this aircraft had developed problems. A similar aircraft had developed problems, a Learjet, and a final report is still awaited.
Absolutely. Let's go across to Saurabh. Saurabh, the fact that, we have to wait for 3 years and in fact more to understand what happened in 2023, and now there's another tragedy that has unfolded and it's taken away precious lives, and of course, Okay, Devendra Fadnavis, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has reached Baramati, and we are getting visuals and pictures of him reaching Baramati. We'll play them out for you, and those are the visuals of...
that's his chopper landing.
Yeah.
That's the Chief Minister of Maharashtra has just reached Baramati, but it's stunning the fact that this could be taken so lightly. 3 years and still the final accident report is not out. Saurabh, go on.
That's right. And in fact, this is something that many within the aviation fraternity have pointed out, that it takes ages and sometimes they just gather dust, that these reports don't come out, that there are no, corrective actions taken. And people wake up until, when the next accident happens. That's something that unfortunately is how the bureaucratic, delays hold up reports and actions. But, like you were mentioning, it's not just Ajit Pawar, there's the crew. And I was just looking at, the information again that was put out by the PIB, the crew information. The pilot in charge is, of course, an ATPL holder. He's flown more than 15,000 hours. So very experienced pilot. And of course, the date of his last medical examination was 19/11/2025, valid up to 19/5/2026. And then, of course, the co-pilot is a commercial pilot's license CPL holder. She, of course, 1,500 hours. And, again, something, all qualified pilots. So obviously, what went wrong is a matter of investigation. But if you look at the sequence of events, there was a go-around, which means that they may have spotted something. They may have felt that there was a requirement for a go-around. Now, go-arounds by themselves are very common in aviation. Even commercial aircrafts do it. If there's sudden wind gusts, change in wind direction, runway incursion, it could be any reason. It could just be...
It could also be last-minute glitches, what Sanjay Lazar was also telling us, Saurabh. And, Tanushka joins us, and Tanushka has been covering aviation for us. Tanushka, the thing about aviation tragedies is that probe gets announced, investigation gets done, but there's never a final report to reflect on learnings. The same thing seemed to have happened in 2023 as well. There's no final probe report yet. We don't know what went wrong in 2023 with the same aircraft that crashed today and took away the lives of 5 people. What happened? Why did it take 3 years for the probe, and why is there no report yet?
Precisely, these are questions that we still have in our minds with respect to the same aircraft, Learjet 45XR, that had crashed back in 2023, as you were mentioning, and this is the same aircraft that has crashed today, leading to the demise of Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar. Now, let us first look at the sequence of events, the timeline. So, 8:10 a.m. this morning is when this flight takes off from Mumbai Airport. And thereafter, 8:30 a.m. is the first landing attempt at Baramati, which fails, likely due to poor visibility. This is something that the pilot also makes very clear to the air traffic control. He warns that there is poor visibility before attempting landing. So after this, there is the second go-around. That is, the aircraft was cleared to land on runway 11 at 8:34 a.m. However, again, they did not get a readback of the landing clearance, as in the ATC did not get a feedback with respect to the landing happening or not. Thereafter, 8:42, second approach for landing happens. 8:45, aircraft disappears from the radar, and after that 8:40, just moments later, it's literally seconds later, that the ATC saw flames around the threshold of runway 11 and emergency services were rushed onto the site. So this is the exact sequence of events that we have gotten. We do understand that this aircraft has been cleared, has certificate of airworthiness, has certificate of registration as well, but even then this went ahead and happened, and we're of course awaiting a final report from the previous crash as well. And on this crash, of course, it remains to be seen what really went down, but the pilot did alert the ATC, air traffic control, about the poor visibility while trying to land at the Baramati airport. Back to you.
Tanushka, for joining us. Devendra Fadnavis, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has already joined. Civil Aviation Minister Ramo Naidu, meanwhile, has spoken, and this is what he has said.
So, पहले तो मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि I'm very deeply saddened by the accident that has happened. इनफैक्ट माई हार्ट इज स्टिल वेरी वेरी हैवी विद सॉरो। और जैसे ही सुबह पता चला, अभी डाइजेस्ट करने में ही बहुत दिक्कत हो रही है कि अजीत दादा अभी हमारे साथ नहीं है। और अजीत दादा के साथ 4 और लोग भी थे प्लेन में। उन सारे परिवारों को अपने कॉन्डोलेंसेस देता हूँ। 2 पायलट थे, क्रू थे और PSO भी थे उनके साथ। और अजीत दादा से जैसे आपने बोला, हमारी भी काफ़ी मुलाकातें रही हैं पिछले 18 महीने जब से मैं मंत्री बना हूँ। और एक यंग मिनिस्टर होने के नाते वो काफ़ी गाइडेंस भी हमें देते थे। और काफ़ी बार महाराष्ट्र की चर्चा जब होती थी और मैं और माहौल भाई हम दोनों भी जब साथ में मिलते थे तो काफ़ी अच्छी गाइडेंस, क्योंकि उनका जो एक्सपीरियंस रहा है पब्लिक सर्विस में, और ख़ास तौर पर जिस ग्रास रूट लेवल पे पब्लिक के साथ, खासकर गरीब लोगों के साथ जिस तरह वो खड़े रहे और उनके साथ जो उन्होंने काम किया, तो ये केवल हमारे लिए नहीं बल्कि पूरे महाराष्ट्र के लिए एक बहुत बड़ी लॉस है और इर्रिपेरेबल लॉस है, इर्रिप्लेसेबल लॉस भी है। काफ़ी बार हमने जब उनसे बात करी तो हमें भी वो अनुभव मिला कि कितना वो प्रैक्टिकलिटी से और ग्राउंड रियलिटी से जुड़े हुए नेता हैं। उस तरह के नेता भी आजकल मिलना बहुत मुश्किल है। और महाराष्ट्र के लिए जिस तरह उन्होंने काम किया है वो हम सबके लिए आदर्शनीय रहेगा। और ख़ासकर अभी जो एक्सीडेंट जो हुआ है उसका जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन उसको भी हमने शुरू कर दिया है। तुरंत DGCA और AIB की टीम भी आई है। और जो प्रिलिमिनरी इन्वेस्टिगेशन या प्रिलिमिनरी जो समाचार हमें मिला है उसमें इतनी जानकारी थी कि जब वो लैंड करना चाहते थे सुबह करीब 8:48 AM के आसपास, तो उस समय विजिबिलिटी थोड़ा पुअर था उधर। और जब ATC बारामती से उनका जो कांटेक्ट हो रहा था फ्लाइट के लिए पायलट से, तो ATC वालों ने पूछा कि क्या रनवे साइट में है, तो उनके तरफ से आया कि रनवे साइट में अभी नहीं है। तो उसके बाद उन्होंने एक गो अराउंड भी किया। गो अराउंड करने के बाद फिर से एक बार कोशिश करी कि हमारे ATC से जो बारामती में जो FTO हैंडल्ड ATC है उनसे वार्तालाप चल रही थी। तो उस समय जब दोबारा लैंड करने आए तब भी उनसे पूछा गया था कि विजिबिलिटी है कि नहीं रनवे का। तो उसके बाद पहले तो उनका समाधान नहीं आया, फिर उसके बाद आया कि विजिबिलिटी है। तो लैंडिंग क्लियरेंस जैसी ATC ने दिया उसके बाद तुरंत देखा गया कि ये एक्सीडेंट हुआ है। बहुत दुखद घटना है। तो इसके ऊपर और जानकारी हमें मिलनी चाहिए। इन्वेस्टिगेशन पूरी तरह से ट्रांसपेरेंट और अकाउंटेबल वे में हम करेंगे। बट उससे पहले तो मैं इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि ये बात बोलना कि अजीत दादा अब नहीं रहे, उसके लिए बहुत 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 दुख होता है। और मैं उनके जो प्यार करने वाले लोग हैं, कार्यकर्ता हैं और उनके परिवार के लोग हैं, उन सबके प्रति कंडोलेंसेस व्यक्त करता हूँ।
Those visuals of Sunetra Pawar, the wife of Ajit Pawar, with the family members of the Pawar family, and also Supriya Sule, the MP of Baramati and the cousin of Ajit Pawar.
It's just so incredibly sad, and it was just, it has just been a month where the entire family was together, first releasing the manifesto of the party. Before that, they were together in Baramati for a function that had taken place. Before that, they were in Delhi. So they all came together, and to think that for such a young leader, and it's just 66 years of age, considering that his uncle, even in his 80s, is still politically active. Here is somebody, and I think it was in 2024 when Devendra Fadnavis inside the assembly had made that speech, and laughingly he had said कि अजीत दादा अभी तो आप मुख्यमंत्री भी बनेंगे एक दिन, आप उसकी चिंता मत कीजिए, आप एक जन नेता हैं. And to think that such a life should be cut short so suddenly, and in just a matter, Vasudha, of 45 minutes. That's all it has taken. And now piecing together from what we have heard from the Civil Aviation Minister, from the DGCA, and I want to again focus on what has the sequence of events that has been put out by the DGCA. It really gives you a fix on what happened in those 45 minutes. Baramati is an uncontrolled airfield, and traffic information is provided by the instructors, pilots from the flying training organizations in Baramati, as per the statement of the person manning the ATC. Following are the sequence of events. At 8:18 IST, the aircraft first came in contact with Baramati. The aircraft's next call was at 30 nm inbound to Baramati and they were released by Pune approach. They were advised to descend in visual meteorological conditions at pilot's discretion. The crew inquired about the winds. And let's get Saurabh in on this. The crew inquired about the winds and visibility. They were informed that the winds were calm. The visibility was around 3,000 meters. Next, the aircraft reported on the final approach on runway 11. The runway was not in sight. They initiated a go-around in the first approach. The aircraft was asked about its position and the crew reported on final approach of runway 11. The aircraft was cleared to land on the runway 11 at 8:43 IST. And that really is critical. From 8:10 a.m. when they took off, 8:43 IST, they were given a clearance, and at 8:46, we see the aircraft crashing. Matter of only 3 minutes, Saurabh, which really is critical in this tragedy. 8:43 to 8:46.
If you go through the sequence of events that is provided by the DGCA, again, like I've been saying, a go-around is pretty common in aviation. It's nothing that is a cause of concern. It is often taken as a safety measure. Pilots choose to go around as a safety measure. Even if they can land, they will choose to go around because there could be any, it could be any reason. It could be runway incursion, it could be wind, it could be wind direction, it could be, just about anything. Or it could be a glitch or anything. So they did take a go around, but then on also things seemed normal because they were in touch with the ATC. In fact, till the time that they don't, they don't read back the instructions. Once, and like, I was explaining, every time there's a communication between an ATC and a pilot, the pilot always reads back the instruction from the ATC. That is confirmation that the information has been heard correctly, the instruction has been heard correctly, and the instruction is being acted upon. This is very important.
We're facing a bit of an issue with your audio over there, Saurabh. We'll really try and fix this. Remember, Saurabh, our entire team is on its way to Baramati. So we're reporting there. They are rushing to the spot as well because the entire family, the action has shifted there. But another important point that we want to point out, if, Tanushka can come in on this, the fact that the statement also mentions that the wreckage of the aircraft is located on the left side of the runway, a beam threshold RW11. What do you make of this bit of information, that the wreckage of the aircraft is located on the left side of the runway, a beam threshold RW11? Tanushka.
Well, this could have, much to do with the visibility, the poor visibility in that, area of the runway. Runway 11 is what we're talking about, and we do understand that the length of the runway was also not much. This is not your commercial airport that we're talking about, Baramati Airport, where this crash happened. So this definitely means that when the pilot indeed was warning about poor visibility before attempting a landing is, the last chain of communication also that went by to the air traffic control. And what we can also gauge from this is what you were also mentioning, that 3-minute gap between 8:43 and 8:46 is crucial also because there was no callback from the pilot to the air traffic control. The official statement that we also have is that the pilot did not give a readback of the landing clearance. That means after receiving the landing clearance from the air traffic control, the pilot is supposed to, concur with that and, somewhat give a sort of agreement that they have delivered they have received the message rather, but that chain of communication is missing. And we also understand that thereafter at 8:45 a.m. the aircraft disappears from the radar, and this is when the ATC see the flames rising up from runway 11.
Crucial 40 minutes in which the entire tragedy unfolded, Padmaja. It's really heartbreaking. Let's just also speak about the visuals there. This is Sunitra Pawar and of course Supriya Sule, both of them part of the same family. Both of them fought against each other for Baramati 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Sunitra Pawar was defeated. She later became the Rajya Sabha MP, and Supriya Sule there with another person of Pawar family. And of course, Praful Patel has also reached, is what we understand. He's a senior NCP leader close to both Sharad Pawar and Ajit Pawar. So clearly a tough time for the entire family, for the party. Let me bring in Abhishek here. Abhishek, Ajit Pawar was seen as the Dada of Baramati, somebody, who was perpetually the Deputy Chief Minister, the 6th time Deputy Chief Minister, who was very ambitious, but at the same time could never make it to the Chief Minister's chair. How is Maharashtra looking at this tragedy? How are people feeling about what happened today?
Definitely, he was the longest serving Deputy Chief Minister, and earlier also I was pointing it out, whether it was Mahavikas Aghadi where he was the Deputy Chief Minister or Mahayuti, he never compromised on his values, on his ideology, secular ideology that he belongs to, and that was also got witnessed while contesting municipal corporation elections. Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad, he didn't align with the BJP. At the same time, in Mumbai also, he has taken a strong stand to contest the election. Though he was a part of Mahayuti, these are the points. In fact, important to note out here, he had a resemblance with the word Dada. Like Baramati, Maharashtra. In fact, we as a political correspondents, we used to sit with him, we used to talk to him, we used to, get information from him. Dada, what is happening now? What is the next step regarding this? When will the money of Ladki Behan come? These are the moments that we have shared with him. And he was very, outspoken and a kind of a leader which has a mass connect. And remember how the growth has been, Earlier we have seen the politics where he was shadowed by Sharad Pawar. But when he took a decision, he rebelled, the party got a split, then there was not good performance in Lok Sabha, but he aggressively campaigned during assembly elections. And with that pink jacket, Dada wearing pink jacket definitely was fear to his own alliance partners also. If you understand that time of campaign, the Ladki Behan, the sisters of Maharashtra relate to him, and it was, definitely the brainchild, I would say, of Ajit Pawar himself, how to gather finance to sustain this Ladki Behan scheme. Which was a game changer for Mahayuti in assembly election.
Quickly, before I go to others, Saurabh, we are told that the cremation is likely to be held tomorrow. And I was speaking to my source and he says family ne abhi tak body ko dekha nahi hai. So, the timing of the cremation is not yet, of course, decided. There's a tragedy that the family is trying to grapple with. Saurabh, help us understand, NCP leaders have started arriving there. How do you see this tragedy impacting the future of NCP?
Well, this is something that political observers in the state are very keenly watching. Now, in the last civic body elections, we saw Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad slip away from the NCP. Sharad Pawar is in his 80s. He's indicated many times that he wants to move away from active politics. Ajit Pawar was clearly, seen as someone who was running the NCP. In fact, even after the split, the NCP symbol, etc., went to Ajit Pawar. So, in a sense, while Supriya Sule is the MP from Baramati, Ajit Pawar was more in the sort of in charge of things in terms of NCP. So, it is a huge vacuum. First, having lost in bastions like Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad, and then, of course, to lose Ajit Pawar at this critical juncture, for the Pawar family, it does matter. Ajit Pawar, we've seen the family ties. In fact, even I remember clearly in the first time around when Ajit Pawar early in the morning, and then there was
significant. If you remember the entire fight in Baramati, they made it a point, Vasudha, to never level personal allegations against each other. Even when Sunitra Pawar was, followed around by reporters, Supriya Sule, they were very clear that, look, ultimately, she is my sister-in-law. वो मेरी भाभी है. So there was never any personal comments or any underhand jibes. Yes, it was a very, very high-octane campaign for both sides. It was about making a point that we are politically relevant over here, but neither side, even after the results, ever came out.
Even
and
off the
made any
record
personal
conversations,
aspersions.
Padmaja, both Sunitra and Supriya would make sure that they talk about the family in a lot of glory, and we would think that, yeah, there's, you know, what you see is not what you...
Yeah, and you would think that they would fight each other, you know, to try and grasp the control. But no, it was very clear that, look, politically we are trying to make a point and saying this is a fight for making your relevance felt in this particular seat. But at no point are we going to, as a family, make any underhand allegations or cast any aspersions. So they were like this. And I remember the last time when there was, you know, the family was sharing a stage, there were plenty of, you know, and it was a non-political function. And they said, look,
Sharad Pawar's birthday, 80th birthday.
Exactly.
Everybody got together, and it was Supriya Sule and, of course, Ajit Pawar.
And speaking of Sharad Pawar, that's the first image. You know, we saw him earlier at the airstrip, and now the first image of Sharad Pawar, he has reached the hospital there, where in the morgue. And also look at the tragedy. You know, one, there is an untimely death. You have somebody really young taken away. And then in a tragedy like this, where the last identification was done with the help of a wristwatch, because, you know, you had like this huge, we saw Rohit Pawar in the morning. I mean, inconsolable. What do you expect? I mean, a young person, a young politician, he's your cousin brother, he's your nephew, he's your uncle, and it's unimaginable. I mean, you know, Vasudha, sitting here right now, I don't think any of us can even claim to put ourselves in the shoes of these people. The politics is one side.
Yeah.
Nobody would at this point be thinking, oh, what will happen to Baramati? Yeah. What will happen to the deputy CM post?
And this is a family that has fought elections with each other. Like Yogendra Pawar was defeated by Ajit Pawar. He's his own nephew. Parth Pawar lost his election. So Netra and Supriya fought this election for Baramati. And then you don't really see them being bitter about each other, and they celebrate family functions, be it weddings or birthdays. But I think for Sharad Pawar, this is going to be it's going to be a heart-wrenching moment for him, because Ajit Pawar is somebody that he shares an extremely close relationship with. Of course, it's gotten off and on, in the last few years. But remember, it was Ajit Pawar who vacated his seat from Baramati as an MP when Sharad Pawar became a minister at the central cabinet. So there's a long journey that both of these men share. And in 2019, I remember when Parth Pawar contested, Sharad Pawar did not contest, right? So I think
Yogendra Pawar also, when he contested against Ajit Pawar and lost, there was this one time they came face to face, and Ajit Pawar said, "Chacha to chacha hi hai."
Exactly.
So, on the outside, you might be thinking, my God, here is a family at war with each other. But no, they were absolutely clear. Politics and parivar are to be kept very separate from each other, because family does come first. I think in terms of political families, if there's one family that has embodied it, it is the Pawar
Ajit
family.
Pawar accepting that it was a mistake to field his wife against his cousin.
Yeah.
So, not many people do that in politics, publicly accept a mistake that they did or something that hurt their family.
But, all right, so we have these images now. That's Rohit Pawar. That's Rohit Pawar on the top-hand screen, top left of your screen.
He's the other nephew of Sharad Pawar, and also is seen as one of the inheritors of his legacy. He's, of course...
Again, somebody who's supposed to be, very rough and ready.
Yes.
He is out there. So, Rohit Pawar, Sunitra Pawar, and Supriya Sule, or the entire family now is reaching Baramati one by one. But Sharad Pawar in particular, and on the one side is this family tragedy, on the other is the political fallout, and then the big question, what went wrong? And at the center of it all is the aviation company which owns that aircraft. Similar problem had been faced in a similar aircraft, a Learjet in 2026 as well, like we broke to you on NDTV. The final accident report in that 2026 accident still hasn't been made. So you had an interim report, but a final accident report is still not out there. Now, we spoke to the owner of the aviation company. Here's what he told us.
उसमें ना तो आप थे ना मैं था कोई नहीं था वो पायलट का डिसीजन था he made an approach from runway 29 and then he carried out a missed approach, after which again he tried to make an attempt from runway 11. This is what I also have no contact with the pilots. They are not there. It is a very unfortunate incident. We are very sad about it. We are trying to first be with the family, solidly with the family who have lost their next of kins. It's a very unfortunate incident. Primarily, it appears that, the pilot could not see the runway, and that's why he would have carried out.
But he has
support.
already.
And the investigation team has already reached the office of VSR Ventures. Aditya Raj Kaul joining us live from there. And I believe that they have already started going through the documentation. Take it away, Aditya.
Well, that's right. We're reporting live from the VSR Aviation headquarters in Delhi. This is right next to the Delhi International Airport. This is the company that really owns that aircraft, which led to that unfortunate incident this morning, the crash in which, unfortunately, the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar was killed. We do not know the exact reason of the crash. We do not know whether that was an accident or a visibility issue. But what I can tell you is that investigators have already reached the headquarters here. There are multiple teams inside. In fact, just a few minutes ago, there were more officials from the MHA that have arrived here. Now, the DGCA will be investigating this threadbare, trying to understand the contents of the black box that are key, where the last communication of the pilot would be understood. But just to give you a glimpse of where I am and what's happening right now, this right behind me, my video journalist Sushil Rathi is showing you, is the headquarters of the VSR Aviations, the owners of this particular aircraft. You can see that glass panel entrance. That's where the officials are, a little inside that in the headquarters. We have the owner of this particular company, VK Singh, who is also speaking to the officials right now. What we have witnessed over the last couple of hours is that multiple documents, several documents from the basement of this company have been brought into the first floor and the ground floor. And multiple officials and multiple teams of investigators are now trying to study the documentation of the company, the documentation and the maintenance records of that particular aircraft, trying to establish whether there was some kind of a fault or, is there something wrong in the records. So that needs to be taken care of threadbare. And that's what the DGCA will be doing, not just today, over the next few days as well. Apart from the documentation, we heard VK Singh, the owner of this company, speak about the details. He said that there was a visibility issue, but that was also an assumed guess from him. He was also not clear whether there was some kind of a other reason that was involved in this particular unfortunate crash in Baramati. But the latest that I can tell you that the investigations have begun. Immediately after the crash, there are multiple teams right behind me investigating this. We do not know whether there will be some kind of an action that will be taken. But as of now, the investigations continue to understand whether this was merely an accident or there was some kind of a fault, because there seems to be an earlier accident where, of course, investigations are being carried forward right now. But whether there was some kind of a fault in the landing gear or a visibility issue will be clear only after the investigations end.
Investigators will also look at weather conditions and also the communication the crew had and the systems in the aircraft. Do we have any clue as to if the documentation was proper in this case, in the case of this company, if the clearances had come in, if there was any problem on that end?
Well, on his part, the owner, VK Singh, has been very categorical. He said that on his part and on the part of the company, there wasn't any wrongdoing. They had followed all the norms. There were documentations in place. There was maintenance that was being carried forward. And obviously, the Mumbai airport and the DGCA there have very strict norms. No aircrafts, be it private aircrafts or commercial aircrafts, are allowed to fly if they do not abide by the strict guidelines of the DGCA and the airport authority. So in this case as well, this was being commercially, of course, used as a private aircraft, which took off a little after 8 a.m. this morning. But within the next 1 hour, a tragedy had struck Maharashtra, with the Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar being killed, apart from 4 others in that aircraft, which included the pilot, the crew and the staff of the Deputy Chief Minister. As I said, the investigations will focus on multiple aspects. One, what is the content of the black box? That is the key to it, because that will be the last communication. The ATC did try to communicate with the pilots, but there wasn't much that came out on the landing, because there were multiple attempts that were made for the landing of this particular aircraft. As of now, right behind me, the investigations are studying the entire documentation of the company, all their aircrafts, but particularly this particular Learjet aircraft, to study whether there was any kind of a wrongdoing or not. And right behind me, you can see more documents being taken inside this particular location. So there is hectic activity that carries on. There are multiple officials right behind me at the VSR Aviation office. They are trying to study the pattern. They are also communicating with the owner of this company, VK Singh, to ask him and quiz him on this particular aircraft and also the documents associated with it, the maintenance that was carried forward, the kind of usage of this aircraft that happened in Delhi, Bombay or other locations. So perhaps in the next few days there would be more clarity from the DGCA as to what turn of events really happened this morning and what would be the conclusive investigation when it comes to this particular tragedy in Baramati.
All right, and in fact, while this investigation continues, the initial movements have already started. A DGCA team over there, the documents being gone through by the crash investigation team. What does give a lot of clues is the spot of the accident, and NDTV is the first team to have reached the spot in Baramati, where at least 5 to 6 kilometers away from that main airstrip, the wreckage still lies. Here's a ground report.
महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री अजीत पवार का प्लेन आज सुबह क्रैश हो गया। जिस जगह प्लेन क्रैश हुआ उस जगह में हूं, आप देख रहे हो, यही वो प्लेन है जहां गहरी खाड़ी में वो गिरा है और अभी भी इसमें जो भी कुछ आग है वो बुझाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। गोजुबावी नाम का गांव है, इस गांव की ट्रैक के बाजू में ही लगभग काफी नीचे यह प्लेन गिरा हुआ नजर आ रहा है। इस प्लेन में अजीत पवार के साथ 5 लोग थे और इस सभी की इस हादसे में मौत हो चुकी है। आज अजीत पवार बारामती का दौरा कर रहे थे। बारामती के जिला परिषद के चुनाव अभी लगे हैं और इस चुनाव के लिए अजीत पवार आज प्रचार सभा लेने वाले थे, लोगों को संबोधन करने वाले थे। उससे पहले ही आज सुबह 8:50 पर ये हादसा हुआ। ये हादसा इतना भयानक था कि प्लेन के अंदर सभी लोग पूरी तरह से जल चुके थे। अजीत पवार जी के हाथ में जो घड़ी थी उससे उनकी पहचान की गई है। अभी भी हम देख रहे हैं जो टूटा हुआ प्लेन यहाँ गिरा है, उसका इंजन जो है वो पूरी साइड पे गिरा है। बाकी अलग कुछ पार्ट है वो इधर उधर गिरे हैं, बाकी कुछ कागजात है वो सब इधर उधर गिरे हैं और अभी भी इसमें थोड़ी सी आग है वो बुझाने की कोशिश अब यहाँ की जा रही है।
Well, with that, it's time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.
You're back with NDTV's live and rolling coverage of the shocking tragedy that has hit Maharashtra politics. The death of Ajit Pawar in a plane crash near Pune in Baramati is our big story today, and we'll be tracking all developments here on NDTV. Vasudha and I will be tracking all the voices and the first ground reports from the crash site. Let's first get you the headlines. Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar dies in a shocking air tragedy near Baramati. The aircraft went down at about 8:46 this morning.
Pawar family members have reached Baramati. Supriya Sule, MP of Baramati, is in tears. The wife of Ajit Pawar, Sunetra Pawar, has also reached. Patriarch Sharad Pawar seen in the hospital.
Prime Minister Modi, opposition leaders condole Ajit Pawar's death, call it shocking. Bengal Chief Minister Mamta asks for a probe into the tragedy.
First day of the budget session of the Parliament, ruckus over G Bill, G Act in fact. Opposition disrupted President Murmu's speech as she mentioned G Act. Opposition is all set to raise the act in the Parliament budget session.
And the top developments we're tracking at this point of time in this rapidly developing story, with more details coming in every minute of what is taking place. Remember, this is the only CCTV visual that has emerged so far from near the crash site that has captured these chilling pictures of the aircraft just as it impacted at about 8:46 p.m.
In fact, Ajit Pawar was on an aircraft and it crashed around 8:44 is what we understand, and these are the visuals of the aircraft that happened. And Ajit Pawar was going to Baramati from Mumbai. He was a Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, also the Finance Minister, and he was going to Baramati to attend a series of political meetings, specifically with regard to local polls.
The aircraft made first contact with the Baramati air traffic control at about 8:18, which is about 10 minutes after taking off from Mumbai, with the crew seeking a weather update. The ATC informed them that winds were calm with visibility at 3,000 meters. On their second approach to the Baramati airfield, the runway was initially not visible, but moments later, the crew confirmed visual contact. The ground control then cleared the aircraft to land on what is called runway 11 at about 8:43 a.m. However, the crew did not give a read back, which is they did not acknowledge this instruction of clearance that was given by the air traffic control, and just 3 minutes later the aircraft disappeared from radar. In this time of devastation, the Pawar family is standing united. Remember, they are politically divided, but as a family they are fully together. NCP Patriarch Sharad Pawar has reached the Punya Shlok Ahilya Devi Holkar Government Hospital and Medical College in Baramati, where mortal remains of all 5 deceased, including Ajit Pawar, are currently kept. Ajit Pawar's wife Sunetra, his sons, NCP leader and cousin Supriya Sule, and other relatives have all gathered at this site.
That's those visuals there of Sunetra Pawar, Rajya Sabha MP, and the wife of Ajit Pawar, and Supriya Sule, and Vittal Seth, one of those friends, long-time associates of Sharad Pawar, seen in those visuals there. Shiv, we also saw Sharad Pawar going to the site of the crash earlier today morning. He was in Mumbai and he left from there. And of course, Supriya Sule and Sunetra Pawar have come from Delhi. They were in Delhi to attend the Parliament session. The Parliament budget session was supposed to begin today, and now the tragedy has unraveled. They're back in Baramati now. We're also told that party leaders have also started arriving. The cremation is expected to take place tomorrow.
3-day state mourning has been declared. In fact, we've got some new pictures of crowds that have gathered outside the hospital and medical college where the remains of Ajit Pawar are currently kept. 3-day mourning has been announced by the Maharashtra government. Flags are flying at half-mast. according to the General Administration Protocol Department, Ajit Pawar's cremation will be conducted with full state honors. During the mourning period, like I said, flags are already flying at half-mast. Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu is expected to visit the crash site along with the crash probe investigation team. 2 officials from the Airports Authority of India have already arrived at the VSR Ventures Private Limited office in Delhi's Mahipalpur. That was the charter company that owned the aircraft that crashed today.
Along with Ramon Naidu, the MOS Muralidhar Mohal, who is from Pune Shiv, he's also reaching Baramati. The family members of Ajit Pawar are already there. The cremation is expected to take place tomorrow. And what we are told is that there will be discussions now. Sharad Pawar, of course, will take those major decisions. And yes, how is this going to play out? And of course, the spotlight is on the investigation as to what really went wrong.
A huge void has been left behind by the death of Ajit Pawar. Maharashtra is still coming to terms with the death of the Ajit Pawar, who was just 66 years old in this tragic plane crash this morning. 8:46 is when that aircraft impacted the ground. And the picture you see on your screen here is the only visual thus far we have of the actual crash. NDTV has accessed that video. There are possibly, Vasudha, more videos that will emerge a little later, which will take this investigation forward. But at this point of time, this is the only picture we have.
The Civil Aviation Minister Ramon Naidu Shiv has assured that the investigation will be done. It will be a thorough investigation that will be done. The investigation team has already reached there. But remember that there are several open-ended questions as to what really went wrong. But yes, those CCTV visuals of the crash have been accessed by NDTV, and they show the exact time of the plane crash and what really happened during those last few minutes.
4 others, apart from Ajit Pawar, including the pilots, his own aide, a stewardess, were also on board that aircraft. So 5 families are in deep mourning today, and we will be acknowledging each of them and telling their stories, because life has come to an end for not just the Maharashtra Chief Minister, the Deputy Chief Minister, but 4 people who were flying with him as well. Aditya Raj Kaul is live with us.